Ever feel like you're just wading through a sea of words?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I know that feeling.
But today, we're diving into the deep end.
That's right.
We're going to explore some advanced English vocabulary, 15 words to be exact.
Okay.
And they're all from this book, Test Your English Vocabulary.
Sounds like a challenge.
Well, it's not about memorizing definitions or anything like that.
Oh, good.
We're going to uncover their hidden depths and how these words connect to the bigger picture.
I like that. It's fascinating how these words can really unlock a deeper understanding of human behavior and communication and even our perception of time.
Absolutely. And to make it a little easier, we'll group our 15 words into themes.
Okay.
First up, the art of communication,
All right.
or sometimes the lack of it.
Right.
Let's start with loquacious. I'm sure you've met someone like this. They could talk a blue streak.
Yeah.
Holding court at a party, even if no one else gets a word in edgewise.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That's our loquacious friend.
Yeah.
It's interesting to contrast that with someone who's laconic. They might only say a few words, but those words carry weight. Think of a seasoned judge delivering a verdict. Just brief, to the point. No wasted syllables.
Oh, I like that example. Now, have you ever noticed how some people use big words to actually avoid clear communication?
All the time.
That's where obfuscate comes in.
Right.
It's like they're trying to build a wall of jargon to hide behind.
It happens a lot, especially in fields like, law or finance.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's unintentional. They're so used to speaking a certain way, they don't realize it's confusing to others.
Right.
But other times it's a deliberate tactic, make things seem more complex than they are.
Yeah, it's like they think if they use enough fancy words, no one will question what they're actually saying.
Right.
But we're smarter than that.
Absolutely.
We're going to see right through that obfuscation and get to the heart of the matter.
And sometimes the most straightforward language is the most powerful.
Okay, enough about communication. Let's talk about behavior. Our next group of words explores some interesting character types we all encounter.
Okay.
The sycophant, the ostentatious, and the austere. Let's start with the sycophant.
All right.
Oof. Just the word makes me cringe. You know that person who's always showering someone with insincere praise just to get on their good side?
Yeah, the classic yes man, always trying to curry favor. It's interesting to think about why someone might behave this way. Could it be a lack of confidence or maybe even a manipulative strategy to gain power?
Oh, it makes you wonder, right? Now let's swing to the opposite end of the spectrum with ostentatious.
Okay.
This is our friend who loves to flaunt their wealth or success.
Oh, yeah.
Think of the person who always has to have the latest designer clothes, the flashiest car, always name-dropping their fancy vacations.
Yeah, it's all about outward appearances, often masking a deeper need for validation. It makes you think about our society's obsession with status symbols and material possessions, doesn't it?
Totally. Now, in contrast to the ostentatious, we have the austere. This describes someone who lives a simple, unadorned life.
Right.
They're not interested in flashy displays or material wealth. Think of a minimalist who values experiences over possessions.
That's a fascinating counterpoint to the ostentatious lifestyle. In a world that constantly bombards us with messages about what we should want and need, the austere individual chooses a different path.
And I think the word propensity ties all three of these words together nicely.
How so?
Well, it refers to our natural tendencies or inclinations. We might have a propensity for flattery, for extravagance, for simplicity. These tendencies shape our behavior in all sorts of ways.
Exactly. We all have propensities, and recognizing them in ourselves and others can be key to understanding why we act the way we do.
Now let's shift gears and get a little philosophical. Our next group of words deals with time and the intangible.
Okay.
Ephemeral, ubiquitous, and the ineffable.
All right.
Have you ever experienced something beautiful but fleeting, like a stunning sunset that disappears in minutes?
Oh, yeah.
That's the essence of ephemeral.
It's about recognizing the beauty in transience, in those moments that are precious because they don't last. In a world that often values permanence and stability, the ephemeral reminds us to cherish the fleeting moments.
That's beautifully put. Now, on the flip side, we have ubiquitous, which describes something that's absolutely everywhere. It used to be rare to see someone using a smartphone, but now they're ubiquitous. You see them on every street corner and every cafe.
Yeah, it's incredible how quickly things can shift from novel to commonplace.
Right.
The ubiquity of technology, for example, has had a profound impact on our lives, for better or for worse.
And finally, we come to ineffable, which might be my favorite word of the bunch.
Oh, why is that?
Well, it describes something so profound, so awe-inspiring, that words simply cannot capture it. Have you ever had an experience like that, where language just failed you?
Absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes the most profound experiences are the ones that transcend language, like the feeling of standing on a mountaintop overlooking this vast landscape or witnessing the birth of a child. These are moments that defy easy description.
It makes you realize the limitations of language, doesn't it? There are some things that words simply can't convey.
And yet that doesn't stop us from trying, from searching for the words that come closest to expressing the inexpressible.
Well said. Ready to tackle our next set of words.
Hit me with it.
This group focuses on actions and reactions.
Yeah.
Perfunctory, temerity, and recant. We'll start with perfunctory.
Okay.
You know those days when you're just going through the motions?
Yeah.
Doing something out of habit or obligation, but without any real heart?
Yeah.
That's perfunctory in action.
We all have those days, right? The key is to recognize when we're stuck in a rut and to make an effort to infuse our actions with more intention and meaning.
So true. Now let's talk about temerity.
Right.
This word is all about boldness, audacity, even a little bit of recklessness. It's about having the guts to do something daring, even if it goes against the grain.
Right.
Have you ever witnessed an act of pure temerity?
Yes, actually. I recall a time when a junior researcher presented this groundbreaking theory that challenged, the established thinking in the field.
Wow.
It was a bold move considering the potential backlash from senior colleagues.
Wow, that takes courage.
It does.
That makes you wonder, what's the line between temerity and foolishness? I guess it depends on the outcome, right?
I suppose it does. But sometimes those acts of temerity are the ones that lead to true innovation and progress.
And finally, we have recant.
Okay.
This is about taking back your words, admitting you were wrong, often in a public way.
Right.
It could be a politician retracting a statement, a scientist revising a theory, or someone simply owning up to a mistake.
It's a powerful act, recanting.
Yeah.
It requires humility, a willingness to acknowledge our fallibility. In a world where people are often afraid to admit they're wrong, recanting can be a sign of true strength and integrity.
It's about putting truth above ego, which can be a tough thing to do.
It can.
All right, ready to move on to our last group of words.
Let's do it.
This one's all about dreamers and realists, and it centers around the word quixotic.
Quixotic. Named after the idealistic knight, Don Quixote.
Right.
He's famous for tilting at windmills, mistaking them for giants. It's a wonderful example of how idealism and imagination can sometimes clash with reality.
Exactly. The word quixotic captures that blend of idealism, romanticism, and perhaps a touch of naivete.
Yeah.
It makes you think about the balance between chasing dreams and being grounded in reality.
It's a delicate balance, isn't it? On the one hand, we need idealism to inspire us, to push us beyond the limits of what seems possible. But on the other hand, we need pragmatism to navigate the complexities of the real world and make progress towards those ideals.
So true.
Yeah.
And sometimes those seemingly impossible quixotic goals can lead to unexpected breakthroughs.
Absolutely. It's about finding that sweet spot between dreaming big and taking practical steps to make those dreams a reality. What about you? Do you have any quixotic goals you're pursuing?
That's a great question. I'm going to have to ponder that one for a bit.
Okay, but in the meantime.
So, any thoughts on those quixotic goals? Did any come to mind during that little pause?
I was thinking about how even outlandish goals can spark innovation. Like, if no one had ever had that crazy idea to fly, well, we wouldn't have airplanes, right?
It's true. Sometimes it's not about reaching that exact vision, but what we discover on the way there.
Exactly. And speaking of journeys, it strikes me how the words we've been discussing, they're not just isolated units of meaning. They're part of a larger system.
Right.
A network of interconnected ideas.
It's like a constellation.
Oh, I like that.
Each star adds to the overall beauty and significance of the pattern.
It's true. We've been focusing on individual words, but it's the way we use them, the context, the nuances. That's what brings language to life.
Exactly. Take a word like austere, for instance.
Okay.
It can describe a monk's simple life, but also the starkness of a desert landscape. Or even like a government's harsh economic policies. Same word, but vastly different connotations depending on how it's used. It reminds me of how a single musical note can evoke different emotions based on the melody and the surrounding notes.
That's a fantastic analogy. And just like a composer carefully chooses notes to create a specific mood, skilled communicators select words to evoke feelings and convey precise meaning.
This makes me think about the importance of expanding our vocabulary, not just for intellectual reasons, but to become more effective communicators.
Right.
The more words we have at our disposal, the more precisely we can express ourselves.
It's like having a wider range of colors on an artist's palette. A limited palette can still create beautiful art, but imagine the possibilities when you have every shade and hue imaginable.
And not only can a rich vocabulary enhance our own communication, but it also helps us understand the nuances of what others are saying.
Absolutely. Think about how, politicians or advertisers use carefully chosen words to influence our opinions and behaviors.
It's true.
The more we understand the subtle ways language can be used, the better equipped we are to critically evaluate the messages we're bombarded with every day.
It's about becoming more aware of the power of words, both for good and for bad, but also appreciating the beauty and complexity of language,
Right.
how it can be used to inspire, to connect, to create art.
And that brings us back to the word ineffable.
Okay.
It describes those experiences that transcend language.
Right.
Even though some things defy description, that doesn't mean we should stop trying to express them.
I agree.
It's the effort, the reaching for meaning that enriches our understanding.
I love that perspective.
Yeah.
Even if we can't perfectly capture an experience in words, the act of trying can help us process it, make sense of it.
Absolutely.
And sometimes those struggles to find the right words lead to the most profound insights.
It's like those moments when a poet struggles to find the perfect rhyme or metaphor.
Yeah.
The result is often a line that's even more beautiful and evocative because of the effort that went into it.
Speaking of poetry, I'm curious, do you have a favorite word? One that you find particularly delightful or thought-provoking?
Oh, that's a tough one. There are so many. But one that's been on my mind lately is serendipity. I love the way it captures those unexpected delights that life throws our way.
Right?
Those moments of fortunate coincidence that lead to new discoveries or connections.
Serendipity is a beautiful word. It reminds me of how sometimes the most meaningful experiences happen when we're not actively seeking them out, when we're open to the unexpected twists and turns of life.
Exactly. It encourages us to embrace a sense of curiosity and wonder, to be open to the possibility that something amazing could be just around the corner.
And who knows, maybe our deep dive today will lead to some serendipitous discoveries for our listeners. They might stumble upon a new favorite word or make an unexpected connection between these words and their own lives.
I certainly hope so. After all, language is about so much more than just definitions. It's about expanding our perspectives, connecting with others, and exploring the richness of human experience.
Now, before we get too philosophical, I think it would be helpful to bring some of these words to life with some concrete examples.
Absolutely. It's one thing to understand a word in the abstract, but it's another to see how it's actually used in context.
For instance, we talked about obfuscate earlier.
Yeah.
I'm curious, how might you see that word used in, say, a legal setting?
Oh, that's an interesting one. In law, you might see obfuscate used to describe a defendant's attempts to hide assets or mislead the court. Or it could be used to criticize a lawyer's dense and confusing legal arguments.
So they're intentionally trying to make things difficult to understand.
It seems that way sometimes.
But as we've been saying, the more we understand these words and the ways they can be used, the better equipped we are to see through those attempts at obfuscation.
Exactly. And speaking of context, I think it'd be interesting to explore the etymology of some of these words.
Oh, yeah.
Trace their origins back to ancient languages and historical events.
I love that idea. Etymology can be like a detective story, uncovering hidden layers of meaning and revealing the fascinating journeys these words have taken over time.
For example, did you know that quixotic comes from the Spanish novel Don Quixote? It's amazing to think how a single literary character can inspire a word that becomes part of our everyday language,
That's true.
carrying with it the spirit of idealism and romanticism.
It's like these words become vessels, carrying centuries of history and cultural meaning within them.
And by delving into their etymology, we can unlock those hidden layers of meaning and gain an even deeper appreciation for the words we use.
It's like going on a linguistic treasure hunt. But instead of digging for gold, we're unearthing the stories and cultural influences that have shaped our language.
And those stories can be just as valuable as any treasure. They remind us that language is a living, breathing entity that's constantly evolving, shaped by the people who use it and the world around them.
This conversation has really sparked my curiosity.
Yeah, mine too.
I'm eager to delve even deeper into the world of language and explore more of its hidden treasures.
Me too. And I have a feeling our listeners are ready to continue this journey with us.
I think so too.
Should we take another short pause and come back for a final round of exploration?
That sounds like a perfect plan. We'll be back soon to wrap up our deep dive into advanced English vocabulary. Welcome back to our deep dive into advanced English vocabulary.
Glad to be back.
It's been such a fascinating journey exploring all these nuances and hidden depths of these words.
Yeah, I agree. It really makes you realize how much richness and complexity there is in language.
Absolutely. And we haven't even touched on like idioms and slang,
Oh, that's right.
which adds another layer of color and expressiveness to language.
Imagine trying to explain, like, kick the bucket or spill the beans to someone learning English for the first time.
Oh, that's a good one.
It'd be like trying to teach them a secret code.
Absolutely.
Oh.
And every language has its own unique set of idioms and colloquialisms, right?
Right. It really reflects the history and the culture and even the sense of humor of a language.
Makes you realize how much language is tied to our identity,
Yeah.
both as individuals and as members of a particular community.
And it highlights the importance of, like, cultural exchange and understanding.
Yeah.
The more we learn about other languages and their nuances, the more we expand our own worldview.
Now, before we wrap up, I wanted to touch on something we haven't really talked about yet, the role of grammar and syntax in effective communication.
Ah, yes, grammar and syntax. While we've been focusing on individual words, it's the way we arrange those words, the structure of our sentences. That's what allows us to convey complex thoughts and ideas.
It's like building a house, right?
Yeah.
You need strong, well-crafted bricks, but you also need a solid framework to hold them together.
Precisely. Grammar and syntax provide that framework. They ensure that our message is clear and coherent and easy to understand.
It's amazing to think about how even a slight change in word order or punctuation can completely alter the meaning of a sentence.
A misplaced comma can lead to all sorts of ambiguity and confusion.
So true. And that brings us to another important point, the importance of being precise and intentional with our language choices.
Especially in written communication where we don't have, like, the tone of voice or body language to help convey our meaning.
Exactly. It makes you realize how much responsibility we have as communicators to use language carefully and thoughtfully.
And it highlights the importance of editing and revising our work to make sure our message is clear, accurate, and free of errors.
Well said. Now, as we come to the end of our deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a few key takeaways.
Okay.
First and foremost, language is constantly evolving.
It's true. New words are being coined all the time. Old words take on new meanings.
It's like a river,
Yeah.
always flowing and changing shape.
Which means we need to be lifelong learners. Always curious about language and how it's being used in the world around us.
I also want to encourage our listeners to embrace the power of language,
Absolutely.
to see it as a tool for connection, for creativity, for making a difference.
Words have the power to inspire, to inform, to persuade, to heal.
But they can also be used to harm, to deceive, to manipulate. So it's crucial that we use them responsibly and ethically.
Couldn't agree more.
And finally, language is a source of endless fascination and delight. There's always something new to discover, some hidden meaning to uncover, some unexpected connection to make.
That's one of the most beautiful things about it.
So keep exploring, keep learning, keep playing with words, and most importantly, never stop being curious about the incredible power of language.
Well said. Until next time, keep diving deep into the world of words.